I need to preface this by saying I'm a skeptic. Always have been. I don't believe in ghosts, I don't read horoscopes, and I've never been the kind of person who mistakes shadows for something sinister. My friend Marcus is the same way. So when I tell you what happened to us in Nepal, I want you to understand that two completely rational people experienced this, and neither of us has ever been able to explain it. We'd flown out to explore the Himalayas, just the two of us and a local guide we'd hired through our hotel. The plan was simple: hike deep into the mountains, camp overnight, come back with good photos and a story to tell. 3 hours in, we found a clearing in the forest that felt right, open enough for tents, sheltered enough to feel safe. It was around 4 in the afternoon when we set up camp. We cooked dinner as the light faded, sat around the fire for a while, and eventually turned in. Everything was fine. Then the weather shifted. Not gradually, suddenly. Wind that came from nowhere and hit the tents like a wall. Within minutes, it was strong enough that the stakes were pulling from the ground. Then the rain started, and that was it. We packed everything up and started moving downhill in the dark, looking for anywhere to wait it out. Around 11, we found the house. Small, old, tucked back from the trail. A woman was sitting on the porch, elderly, hands moving in her lap like she was weaving something. Our guide spoke with her. She said the house was too small to take us in properly, but we could sleep under the covered porch. She offered food. We told her we'd already eaten. She smiled and said her granddaughter's birthday was that day and that we should celebrate with them. I remember thinking she seemed genuinely kind. The granddaughter was young. I'd put her at maybe 7 or 8. Quiet kid. Both of them brought out food and insisted we eat, and honestly, the whole thing was warm and pleasant in the way that unexpected hospitality in a foreign place can be. We fell asleep sometime around 12:30. I woke up needing to use the bathroom. The outhouse was around the back of the house. I grabbed my flashlight and headed out. It had stopped raining. The forest was dark and quiet, and I remember thinking how peaceful it was. Then I saw movement near the bushes to my left. My first thought was that the little girl had come outside. Kids do that. I turned toward it. It was her. She was crouched low to the ground over something. I couldn't make out what at first. I took a few steps closer. She was eating. Whatever was on the ground in front of her, whatever she had her hands buried in, she was tearing pieces away and eating them. Her face and hands were dark with blood. She didn't notice me. She was completely focused on what she was doing. I stood there for I don't know how long. Long enough that I should have moved, should have said something. I couldn't. Then I ran. I shook Marcus awake and told him exactly what I'd seen. He stared at me. The guide sat up slowly. Neither of them believed me. Marcus said I was probably just disoriented from being half asleep, that it was dark, that I'd imagined it. I told him I knew what I saw. He said, "Okay, fine, let's go look then." So we went back. There was nothing there. No body, no blood on the ground, no girl. The bushes were just bushes. Marcus looked at me with that expression, the one that means he's trying to be patient, and said I was exhausted and needed to sleep. We went back to our sleeping bags. A few minutes later, the old woman and the girl came outside asking what the noise was about. Marcus explained that I'd thought I'd seen something. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. I can't fully describe what was wrong with that smile. It wasn't warm the way their smiles had been earlier. It was something else, like they were sharing a joke at our expense, and the joke wasn't funny in any normal way. I lay back down and tried to convince myself I was losing it. Then Marcus screamed. He was sitting upright when I got to him, shaking in a way I'd never seen before. He grabbed my arm and pulled me close and told me in a low voice that he'd woken up to find the girl standing right beside him, that she'd been holding something, a hand, he said, a severed hand, and pressing pieces of it against his mouth and whispering, "Eat, eat, eat." Then she'd laughed and run. He was drenched in sweat. Marcus, who'd laughed at me 20 minutes earlier, was barely holding it together. I told the guide we were leaving, right now. This time he didn't argue. We were still throwing things into our bags when the screaming started inside the house. The old woman's voice. "Help me! Help me!" None of us moved toward the door for a long moment. Our guide opened it. She was floating, upside down, maybe 4 feet off the floor, her white hair hanging toward the ground. Her face was turned away from us. When the guide called out to her, she rotated slowly, the whole body rotating, not just the head, until she was looking directly at us. Then she laughed. I've tried to describe that sound to people, and I always come up short. It didn't sound like a person laughing. It didn't sound like any animal I've heard either. It was just wrong in a fundamental way, like hearing a voice come from a direction that voices can't come from. The girl hit our guide from behind and took him down hard. He went into the doorframe on the way down, screaming. The old woman was already moving toward us. I grabbed our guide by the collar and pulled him out the door, and we ran. The forest at that hour was pure black. Rain had started again. We were running downhill on a trail we could barely see, no idea how far we were from anything, just moving. For a stretch of time, I could hear them behind us, footsteps or something like footsteps, keeping pace in the trees alongside the trail. Then at some point I looked back and there was nothing. We slowed down, but we didn't stop. Then the trail was blocked, a massive fallen tree, too big to climb, too dense to push through. We stopped in front of it, breathing hard. That's when we heard the growling. It was a dog, enormous, black, standing in the trail behind us. Blood on its face and jaw, strings of saliva hanging from its mouth. It watched us for a second with these flat eyes, and then it charged. I turned to run forward, and they were already there, the old woman and the girl, standing on the other side of the fallen tree. Not winded, not hurrying, just standing there watching us like they had all the time in the world. The dog hit our guide from behind and dragged him toward the trees by his leg. I picked up the first thing I could find, a heavy branch, and went after it and hit it across the head as hard as I could. It let go. Our guide, still on the ground, reached into his pocket and flicked a lighter. The flame appeared, and everything just stopped. The dog was gone, the old woman was gone, the girl was gone. I looked at the trail ahead, and the fallen tree wasn't there either. The path was completely clear, like nothing had ever been blocking it. We found some dry straw nearby and lit it to use as torches. We didn't stop moving until we could see the hotel lights in the valley below. I've been back to Nepal once since then. I didn't go near the mountains. There's a version of that night that I've tried to construct where everything has a rational explanation. Weather, darkness, exhaustion, paranoia feeding paranoia. I've spent a long time trying to make that version hold together. It doesn't. I know what Marcus and I saw. I know what our guide saw. 3 people, none of us prone to this kind of thing, all saw the same things. Whatever that woman and that child were, they weren't what they appeared to be when we first arrived. That kindness, the birthday, the food, all of it was something else. I don't know what they wanted from us. I'm just grateful we didn't stay long enough to find out. I moved to California when I was 26. Fresh start, new city, grad program I'd worked years to get into. I was excited, genuinely excited. The kind of excited where you don't really stop to think too hard about the details. The university housing was full, so I found a room in a small apartment close to campus. Affordable, close enough to walk, nothing fancy, but it worked. The landlord mentioned someone else was already living there, a girl named Emma. Kept to herself, he said. Studied late at the library most nights. I never actually saw her when I came to look at the place, but that didn't seem strange at the time. What he didn't tell me until after I'd signed the lease was that Emma had been killed in an accident. Same day I moved in, apparently, or close to it. The details were vague and I didn't push. Her things were still in her room when I arrived, all of it, just sitting there like she'd stepped out for a minute. I moved everything into the storage room. Felt wrong leaving it. Felt wrong touching it. I did it anyway. That first night, I was alone. I ate dinner, scrolled my phone for a while, and fell asleep earlier than I meant to. Nothing unusual about that. I was tired from the move. Then I woke up. I don't know what time it was. The room was dark and quiet, and I lay there for a second, just orienting myself. New place, unfamiliar ceiling, that kind of thing. And then I heard it. Someone humming, soft and low, close enough that it felt like it was in the room with me. I turned the light on. Nothing there. I told myself it was the apartment settling or someone in a neighboring unit, or just that specific kind of half-asleep confusion where sounds bleed into your awareness before you're fully conscious. I turned the light back off. Then the storage room started. Sounds like movement, like someone methodically carrying things, picking something up, walking, setting it down, going back for the next thing, over and over. The specific rhythm of someone unpacking a room. I lay completely still and listened to it for longer than I should have. Eventually exhaustion won, and I fell back asleep. I don't know how, I just did. The cold woke me up the second time. It wasn't the apartment getting chilly. This was different, localized, wrong. Like the temperature had dropped in a 2-foot radius around my bed. I pulled the blanket up, then something pulled it back. Not violently, just firmly. The way you'd pull a blanket off someone you were trying to wake up. I sat up, got a glass of water, stood in the kitchen for a while with the light on, trying to slow my breathing down. Eventually, I went back to bed, pulled the blanket up again, closed my eyes. Something whispered in my ear. I didn't catch the words. I'm not sure there were words. Just breath and sound right against my ear, close enough that I should have been able to feel whoever it was. But there was nothing there when I turned my head. Nothing I could see. The room felt occupied in a way rooms aren't supposed to feel. Heavy. Like the air had weight to it. I needed to use the bathroom. I got up. I made it about 3 steps before I felt it. Footsteps behind me. Soft and even, matching my pace. I stopped. They stopped. The hair on the back of my neck was standing up completely. I turned around. He was right there. I recognized him from the photo that had been on Emma's shelf. Same face, same build. But his body was covered in blood and one of his legs was bent at an angle that legs aren't supposed to bend. He looked at me with an expression that wasn't grief, exactly. It was closer to fury, like I had done something unforgivable. Then, everything in the room started moving. Things came off shelves. The photo frame, the one with his picture, came off the wall and hit the floor hard enough to shatter the glass. I backed against the wall and just stood there while it happened, too scared to run, too scared to do anything. The footsteps started again after that. Back and forth, bedroom to kitchen, kitchen to storage room, all night long. Every time I got close to sleep, I heard dishes moving in the kitchen, water running. I went to check once and the faucet was on full blast, nobody there. I ran back to my room screaming. I'm not going to pretend I handled it with any kind of composure. I called the landlord, no answer. Called 2 friends, nothing. I was completely alone at whatever hour it was in an apartment where something very wrong was happening. I locked my door, got back into bed, pulled the blanket up, turned over. He was standing at the foot of the bed, closer this time, face covered in blood, and one eye just gone, the socket empty. He stood there and looked at me with that one remaining eye. And that's the last thing I remember. I came back to myself in the morning. Sunlight through the curtains, birds outside, all of it completely ordinary. I was still in my bed. Nothing in the room looked disturbed. I went straight to the landlord's place and told him everything. He didn't seem surprised. That's the part that still bothers me most, actually. He just listened and nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting the conversation. I was out of that apartment the next day. I think about it sometimes. About Emma, about whoever that man was, about what he must have felt having his things moved around by a stranger who didn't know anything about him. I don't know what I walked into that night. What I do know is that I've lived in a lot of places since then. Cheap apartments, old buildings, places with histories I probably don't know about. I've never felt anything like that again, and I hope I never do. I've been driving nights in Bristol for almost 15 years. You see things driving nights. Drunk people, fights spilling out of pubs, people crying on curbs at 2 a.m. After a while, you develop a kind of emotional callus. Nothing really surprises you anymore. You just drive, you get people where they need to go, and you go home. I thought I'd seen everything. I hadn't. This was maybe 12:30 at night. I'd just dropped a fare, guy from a bar, nothing unusual. And I was heading back through one of the quieter routes out of the city. The kind of road that doesn't get much traffic even during the day. At that hour, it was completely dead. There's a bridge on that road. And right beside it, a cemetery. I'd driven past it dozens of times without giving it a second thought. It was just there, the way old cemeteries in British cities just exist alongside everything else. You stop noticing them. That night, I noticed. Before I even reached the bridge, I saw something in the road. Dark, low to the ground. My first thought was that something had fallen off a truck, a rock, a piece of debris. The road was narrow enough that I couldn't just go around it. So I pulled over and got out to take a look. I walked up to it. It looked like a person, a dark shape, roughly the size and outline of a human body, lying flat in the middle of the road. I turned back toward the cab to grab a proper light, and when I looked back, it was gone, not moved, gone. No sound, no movement. Nothing. The road was empty. I stood there for a second, just processing that. Then I got back in the cab, locked the door, and tried to start the engine. It wouldn't turn over. I sat there in the dark next to a cemetery at 12:30 in the morning with a dead engine and whatever I'd just seen still somewhere in the back of my mind. I had a candle in the cab. I know, strange thing to keep in a taxi, but I had one, and a lighter. I don't know why I lit it. Habit, maybe. Something to do with my hands. The engine started. I got out of there fast, about 300 meters up the road. It came back, just appeared in front of the cab, right in my headlights. This black shape, same as before, just sitting in the middle of the road, and I was moving at speed. I yanked the handbrake. The cab skidded and clipped the wall on the side of the road. Not badly, but enough. When I looked up, it was gone again. I sat there, waited to see if another car would come. None did. That road was completely silent. Eventually, I started moving again. Closed every window, just focused on getting to somewhere with other people as fast as possible. Then it landed on the roof. I felt it before I heard it, this massive impact, like something heavy had just dropped straight down onto the cab from above. And then it started moving up there, bouncing. The whole frame of the car was flexing with it. I genuinely thought the roof was going to give way. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just kept driving and tried not to think about what was directly above my head. Then the weight changed. That's the part that's hardest to explain. The cab suddenly felt like it was carrying an extra 500 kilos. I had the accelerator floored, and the car was slugging through the road like it was pulling something massive. The engine was screaming. And then, something pressed against the windscreen. A woman, or the shape of one, face and hands against the glass, covered in blood. Right there in front of me, plastered against the outside of the windscreen, and I couldn't see anything past her. I couldn't see the road. Everything in me said, stop the car. I didn't stop the car. I don't know what made me keep going. Some part of my brain just decided that stopping was worse than whatever came next. I pushed the accelerator harder and turned the headlights up full, aimed the beams right at her face. She disappeared. Just like that, gone. I drove straight to the nearest police station. Walked in still shaking, hands I couldn't keep still, and told the officer on duty exactly what had happened. He listened to the whole thing. Didn't laugh, didn't look at me like I was drunk. When I finished, he just nodded slowly and said, "Yeah, we've heard things about that road before." That was it. That was all he said. I drove home when it got light. Didn't take that route again for months. I still drive nights. Still pass that bridge sometimes when there's no other way around it. I don't look at the cemetery anymore. I just drive.